to this morning's online Bible study. Whether you're tuning in at Twitter or Periscope at Bible Study Cam, whether you're on Facebook.com/Reflective Bible Study, whether you're on YouTube at The Online Preacher, or even if you're at theonlinepreacher.com/live, wherever you happen to be tuning in, whether it's one of those places or somewhere else, whether this is on live or on replay, I want to welcome you to this morning's online Bible study. And this morning, we're going to be focusing in specifically on the lead-up verses to what may be considered Jesus' most famous miracle. Now, Jesus did many miracles throughout his time on earth, but only one miracle, say, aside from the resurrection, is recorded in all four Gospels. But while we oftentimes will jump in and use John's Gospel because it seems to include a bunch of details and nuances in this event, the way that Mark's Gospel sets the stage for this miracle is powerful in my mind. So with that said, let's dive into Mark's passage, this miracle, read what happens, and then circle back around and focus in on how the stage is set for this miracle. This is Mark chapter 6. We're going to read from verse 30 to 44 using the New American Standard Bible. The apostles gathered together with Jesus, and they reported to him all that they had done and taught. And I believe this is coming off of Jesus sending out the apostles in pairs and them going out and teaching and preaching in the surrounding countryside. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that's what this event comes right off of. And he said to them, "Come away by yourselves to a secluded place and rest a while." For there were many people coming and going, and they did not even have time to eat. They went away in the boat to a secluded place by themselves. Verse 33. The people saw them going, and many recognized them, and ran there together on foot from all the cities, and got there ahead of them. When Jesus went ashore, he saw a large crowd, and he felt compassion for them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd, and he began to teach them many things. Verse 35, when it was already quite late, his disciples came to him and said, "This place is desolate, and it is already quite late. Send them away so that they may go into the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat." But he answered them, "You give them something to eat." And they said to him, "Shall we go and spend 200 denarii on bread and give them something to eat?" And he said to them, "How many loaves do you have? Go, look." And when they found out, they said, 5 loaves and 2 fish. And he commanded them all to sit down by groups on the green grass. Now I want to pause here for a moment because we like John's Gospel because John's Gospel draws our attention to a young boy who happened to have a small little sack lunch, and that's where the 5 loaves and 2 fish come. But Mark's Gospel doesn't go into any of that detail. And Jesus commanded them all to sit down by groups on the green grass. That's verse 39. Verse 40. They sat down in groups of hundreds and 50s. And he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up toward heaven, he blessed the food and broke the loaves, and he kept giving them to the disciples to set before them. And he divided up the 2 fish among them all, and they all ate and were satisfied. And they picked up 12 full baskets of the broken pieces, and also of the fish. There were 5,000 men who ate the loaves. This miracle is amazing. And there's plenty of things in the miracle itself that we could focus in on. However, instead of focusing on the miracle, like I alluded to earlier, let's focus on what Jesus originally wanted to do. Now, you might say, well, Jesus originally, he challenged the disciples to get the loaves of bread to feed the people. But when we look at this event as a whole, that wasn't Jesus' original plan. That was kind of like a plan C or a plan D in the grand scheme of things. Because how Mark opens this event is that Jesus tells them in verse 31, and he said to them, come away by yourselves to a secluded place and rest a while. This event, or at least the original plan for this event, would have been an opportunity for Jesus and the disciples to have some downtime together. Jesus, knowing that they are coming, you could maybe say, off of an emotional or a spiritual high after potentially having gone and preached the good news about the kingdom of heaven and the kingdom of God to the surrounding towns and villages, Jesus is now offering them an opportunity and a chance to rest. Come away by yourselves to a secluded place and rest a while. And Jesus tells us, or at least Mark tells us, that one reason for this was because as they had come back to Jesus, there were so many people coming around and asking for help that they didn't even have time to eat. They were really, really, really busy doing the ministry of ministry. They were busy doing ministry, busy helping people in Jesus' and God's name. But without rest, there is the certainty of burnout. Without rest, without taking some time to rest, you could say rest and recharge, rest and just let God give you just His rest, His peace. Without that, burnout is certain. And that's crazy to think about, but it's the truth. It's difficult to do because everything in culture demands that we go, do, and keep on staying connected. But when we do, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when burnout comes. But what's interesting is that while Jesus desired to have an opportunity and a time to rest with his disciples, verse 34, when Jesus went ashore, they had figured out the perfect secluded place. When Jesus went ashore, he saw a large crowd, and he felt compassion for them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. God had allowed this crowd to race ahead of the boats. The boats would have been probably going straight across the lake, and the crowd would have been collecting and amassing people as people were running around the lake. These people were going fast. These people were intent on finding Jesus. When Jesus went ashore, he saw a large crowd and felt compassion for them. He could have sent them away. He could have said, guys, it's not the best time because my disciples and I, we just have to rest. We're facing burnout. But that's not what Jesus does. Jesus looks at the crowd and he understands that God allowed them to find him, which then meant that he needed to help them. And so he sits down and he begins teaching them. And while we need rest in our lives, the flip side of that truth is that we also must be willing to help others when God allows and brings them into our lives. And that's not easy to understand, or it's maybe easy to understand, but it's not necessarily easy to figure out that balance of rest versus help. But it's what Jesus models for us. Jesus models looking and focusing in and scheduling and setting aside time to rest, while also being open to allowing God to interrupt that desired rest to help others. Now, in our case, help probably doesn't look like feeding a crowd of over 5,000 people. But when we have God in our lives, I believe He will prompt us and let us know how we can help in the best way possible. The best way possible might be making a connection between the person needing help and somebody who is much better equipped to help them. Sometimes the help isn't going to come from us. And actually, you could probably say, almost certainly, if God brought somebody into your life, the help isn't going to come from us. It might come from an encouraging word that God prompts us with. It might come from just us helping someone work through something that relates to an experience that we had that we did have it. It's not something that we may have even been responsible for. But whatever the case is, rest is vital. But so is helping those that God brings into our lives. And that's what I wanted to draw our attention to this morning as we're coming up on another weekend. And before doing my customary closing words, I want to let you know that this weekend I'm also going to do a technology fast, kind of like what I did a few weekends ago. But ideally, if I have the time tomorrow morning before turning off the phones and the computers and all of that stuff, I'm going to record the mornings of the weekend. So Friday morning, Sabbath morning, Saturday morning, Sunday morning. And I'm going to record those and then schedule them to be released so that even though I'll be disconnected from technology, I'll still be able to help and bless and encourage you on your walk with Jesus. And so with that said, thank you for tuning in, and take some time, if not today, this weekend, to schedule in rest. But also, know that if God brings somebody into your life that needs help while you're trying to rest, it happened to Jesus. And there's a reason for God allowing that person into your life. I can't say what it is. Every situation is different, but trust that God has a reason. And so with that said, thank you for tuning in, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, any one of those places, or somewhere else. And if this video has challenged or encouraged you or inspired you, I would challenge, encourage, inspire you to share this video with them or with somebody who you know needs it. And let's together keep our focus on Jesus, resting in His presence, you could say, but also being open and willing to let Him use you to bless others. So thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you tomorrow.